I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Oh.
All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the VHS Doom podcast. We are glad you're back. We hope you remembered to rewind your movies from last week. How did the kids like the Super Mario Bros. Movie that I recommended? Did John Leguizamo really fulfill all of their, hopes? Probably not.
I hope he wins the Oscar for it eventually.
I hear he may be nominated for the 1993 Oscars for his role as Luigi Mario.
He was also Clown in Spawn.
Oh my God. Yeah. So not that good, but that's okay. Please just make sure you be kind and rewind, folks.
Or else you'll get some fees.
And for real, I will charge you if you lose your card one more time. It's $3 a pop, bro.
I don't want to hear it anymore.
I don't have time for this. I don't have time. Anyway, yes. So welcome back, everybody. If you have not tuned in previously, please go back and check out our first two episodes. In episode 1, Mikey and I talk a lot about ourselves and how we got to know each other and how we got into this podcasting thing. And then in episode 2, we talk all about slashers, a really good overview of the history of slasher movies. So we made a few recommendations for what you should check out for the week from our cute little VHS Doom movie store. I hope you enjoyed them. If you did watch them and you have any notes or you want to tell us anything about the show and what you thought about it, you can reach out to us on our Twitter at VHS Doom Pod. And we also have the same handle on Instagram and Facebook.
I'll be the one to be talking to.
Yeah, so Mikey is our social media manager over there. So please go drop him a line and tell him what you think of his reviews or of my incessant talking.
Tell me how wrong I am too.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, if you guys want to let us know that we messed up, that's fine. We always will do corrections in the beginning of our episodes if we messed anything up from the previous week. So feel free to let us know how we did, or if you like the show, that's cool too. Also, if you want, feel free to drop us a line at our email. It's vhsdoom@gmail.com. If y'all do that and you want to have anything read on air, happy birthday to your best friend, or, you hate us and you want us to read about how awful we are, we'll read anything, man. Just
that'd be honestly really fun.
Oh, yeah, I'd love some hate mail, please. Or, fan mail, whatever, it's fine. Just send us something. So that'd be cool. Anyway, all right, so this week we are going to jump into just an awesome topic. We are going to be talking about the life and work of George Andrew Romero. Mikey and I had discussed all kinds of potential topics that we might want to cover for our first few episodes. And the Night of the Living Dead series came up multiple times. Oh, got a burp. Sorry. All that soda pop I've been drinking, that I've been. Pop? Yeah, we got soda pops and popcorn and candy for the kiddies, and I'd be snacking on that popcorn and drinking them sodies. So anyway, I also play a little bit of the Super Nintendo in the back office when I'm not helping these folks find what they're looking for. Anyway. So so we're jumping into the life and work of George Romero. We are both super excited for this episode. Romero's work has been unbelievably influential to horror and to cinema in general. So much so that, some of his work has been put into the Library of Congress for preservation. Like he's awesome. So I'm super excited about this episode. But before we jump in, we did have a couple follow-up notes and corrections from last week's episode. So thank you to those of you who heard that and let us know. So first is from me, Madman versus The Burning. So I was kind of confused as to why there were two films that were both about the same legend coming out in the same year. So I had to do some digging into that to just kind of like get some clarification for myself, and I wanted to read that on air. So Madman and The Burning, both which came out in 1981. So Madman was originally based on the upstate New York urban legend of Cropsey the Maniac. The Burning is also based on the urban legend of Cropsey the Maniac. So Madman was conceived by Joe Gione and producer Gary Sales, both first-time feature filmmakers who had met in college. Their initial premise and main antagonist was changed last minute due to conflicts with The Burning, which both featured Cropsey as the villain and were both in production at exactly the same time.
I think his name is cooler, though.
Right, yeah. Well, they changed his name to
Madman
what?
Mars.
Madman Mars, which maybe worked out in their favor. We'll talk about that in a second, though. So The Burning was a screenplay that was written by Bob Weinstein and Peter Lawrence from a story conceived by Harvey Weinstein. So some not so good names in there anyway. But it was the film debut of Jason Alexander, Fisher Stevens, and Holly Hunter.
That blew your mind last week.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, so The Burning was theatrically released on May 8th, 81. And it actually did not generate the interest or revenue achieved by other slasher films of the exact same time, including the film that was about the exact same thing in Madman. So maybe Madman either had just the better title.
I think both of them blew up because of the VHS era kind of stuff.
Well, so here's the thing. In the box office is what I'm looking at, right? So I haven't paid too much attention to post theatrical release revenue, but just in the box office, listen to this. So Madman was made for $350,000, made by a couple kids out of film school, right? Which it's still a big budget, but they made $1.3 million on that movie. So a really good profit comparatively to The Burning, which was made for $1.5 million and only brought in $700,000. So they lost money. So in the battle of the Cropsey legend, at least in theatrical release, Madman came out on top, and the Weinsteins lost that battle. So that was my follow-up from last week. A cool little blurb I did not know about. So, Mikey, what do you have? What do you have for follow-ups for last week?
All right. So for the last week, I said that Danielle Harris was the star of Hatchet 1. I meant to say that she was the star of Hatchet 2. Hatchet 2 is pretty much almost like a remake of the first one, so I kind of mixed it up there.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. And what were your rental suggestions to our lovely customers here last week? Do you remember?
I think it was House on Story Row.
Oh yeah.
Prom Night.
I think you might have recommended The Burning. Did you?
I think I did The Burning in Pieces.
Oh, The Burning in Pieces, right. Well, somebody didn't rewind Pieces. No, I'm kidding.
Bite marks on the packaging, too. I was kind of confused.
Yeah, right? I don't know. Anyway, all right. Cool. Well, thanks for that follow-up, Mike. In this week's episode, we are going to pay homage to one of the biggest names in horror, George Romero. So why, Mikey, did you want to pick Romero as a subject of this episode?
He's one of my favorite directors. I think Dawn of the Dead is if not my favorite movie of all time. Martin, I think, is the best vampire movie of all time because it's so different than other vampire movies. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the stuff also is his political stances being in movies.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn of the Dead was about consumerism and the rise of malls.
Yeah.
And you can even see it, pictures of Black Friday are always compared to Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit, in the timeline at the end of the timeline, essentially, or end of my notes, but each film goes through different parts of like societal breakdown or like
Yeah, like
the
definitely
woes.
when COVID first happened, I
Hmm.
rewatched The Crazies,
Oh God,
like the original, and
yeah,
to me it holds up. I mean,
yeah.
the remake does too.
I thought the remake was actually pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's really
Yeah,
good.
I liked
It's
it.
one of the better remakes from that time period.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's probably because he was involved with it. I think he
Yeah, for
was.
sure. I mean, like he was involved with Tom Savini's remake of Night of the Living Dead too.
Did you like that one?
Yes, I did a lot. I
Yeah.
thought Tony Todd was great as Ben.
Yeah, for sure. You gotta love that Ben character. Um, I don't know if I even included this in the notes, but when in interviews, like
Oh
after,
yes, I love this fact.
yeah, after, well, I don't know if it's going to be the same fact. You got to be careful about that. Don't agree with me yet. But he said, that Dwayne Jones was just the best
Yes, this is the
audition,
one.
just the best audition. It had nothing to do with him, the color of his skin or whatever, trying to be progressive or anything like that. But maybe you have more information on that fact. I just happened to read the blurb. Go ahead.
I've heard before that the plot was like based around racism.
Was it?
Like, remember how he gets killed at the end?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, and then like all of the the police and like good old boys is like hauling him away.
yeah. I mean, that to me, I would think that is just a narrative of what it's like to be, black in American society at any time. You could be the hero of the entire story, and at the end, the police arrive and kill you anyway, just because you look like you might be, someone of interest, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I think I think the narrative's there, but Romero has said, well, he was just the best audition. So, but I don't know if I think there's more to it than that.
I think there is because there's a lot of political stuff he put into his movies.
Yeah. Now, what I didn't know before I started my research was that he drew influence from I Am Legend, the 1954 novel. Have you ever read the novel?
Yes, I have. I've also seen the Vincent Price movie of it, The Last Man on Earth.
Yeah. So honestly, I wasn't that well versed in, the history of this movie or of I Am Legend because I've seen obviously Will Smith's I Am Legend, but I didn't even know it was a novel. So that's just my ignorance on the subject. But I was like, oh crap, I got more looking into this.
You can
to do.
definitely feel though, like the vampires and the zombies are kind of the same kind of thing in both the movies and the book. Because before Romero's zombies, it was more voodoo kind of zombies. It wasn't like flesh-eating ghouls who already died.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me load up my notes here so we can get going, and get through this little bit of stuff I'm
This
going to read
monster's not
off.
that bad.
This monster's not that bad. I'm hoping you're talking about a drink, or is it your friend there, your monster friend?
No, it's this new strawberry dreams drink. It's pretty good.
Oh, okay. It would be cooler if you were hanging out with a monster, but that's all right.
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I did on this newest episode of Doombox, the Misfits Part 2 that's about to drop this weekend? I created a co-host named Balthazar, who's a half demon, half human, and he does commentary on some of the parts of the episode. I think you're gonna really like it. So Balthazar was a half demon, half human in Constantine. And I always like the name. It sounds really good if you're like sacrificing babies to Balthazar. It's a cool name. So I made Balthazar my co-host, and it's pretty cool. You're gonna like it. Anyway, all right, let's go. Press play. Come on, press play. Press play. So, George Andrew Romero was an American-Canadian filmmaker, writer, editor, and actor. His Night of the Living Dead series of films about an imagined zombie apocalypse began with a 1968 film of the same name, Night of the Living Dead, and is often considered a major contributor to the image of the zombie in modern culture. Other films in the series include Dawn of the Dead in 1978 and Day of the Dead in 1985, which we will talk about later. Aside from the series, his works include The Crazies in 1973, Martin in 1977, Night Riders in 1981, Creepshow in 82, Monkey Shines in 88, The Dark Half in 93, and Bruiser in 2000. He also, well, they're not included in this beginning list, but he directed Land of the Dead in 2005, Diary of the Dead in 2007, and Survival of the Dead in 2009. He also created and executive produced the television series Tales from the Dark Side from 83 to 88.
So good.
Yeah, before we get too deep into any of his films, we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about his early life. So Romero was born on February the 4th in 1940 in the New York City borough of the Bronx. He was the son of Anne Romero and George Romero, who was a commercial artist. His mother was Lithuanian and his father was from Spain, but had immigrated to Cuba as a child. Raised in the Parkchester section of the Bronx, he would frequently ride the subway into Manhattan to rent film reels to view at his house. He was one of only two people who repeatedly rented the opera-based film The Tales of Hoffmann, which I had not heard of until this research. Had you, Mikey?
I have never heard of that movie in my life. What year did that come out in?
So The Tales of Hoffmann is a 1951 British Technicolor comic opera film written, produced, and directed by the team of Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, working under the umbrella of their production company, The Archers. It's an adaptation of Jacques Offenbach's 1881 opera, The Tales of Hoffmann, itself based on 3 short stories by E.T.A. Hoffmann. So the thing is, go Romero and go kids of that time, because if they wanted to rent movies or film reels, they literally had to go buy a film projector or rent a film projector.
That must have been so expensive at that time.
Talk about, like, the commitment needed to be a cinephile at that time versus today, right? Anyway, so while being interviewed at a film festival where the movie The Tales of Hoffmann was being screened, Romero is quoted as saying, "It's beautifully made and wonderfully conceived. I saw The Tales of Hoffmann first when I was 12 or 13, and in those days, if you wanted to watch a film at home, you had to go and rent the projector and a 16mm print. So I would use all of my allowance money to take out The Tales of Hoffmann, and it was always available. Nobody else ever took it out. Then, all of a sudden, somebody else started to book it, and I couldn't get it. It turned out to be Martin Scorsese."
Of course it was.
Right? So they were the same age. He said, "We were the same age. He lived in Brooklyn and I lived in the Bronx, and we were the only two guys that were taking out this movie." So I'm sure it goes without saying that they probably had some laughs about that afterwards.
Two of the biggest movies makers and cinephiles.
Well, yeah, right. I feel like if these two guys are taking out that movie,
it must be good.
It must be good, or it must be influential enough to drive you in the direction of filmmaking, right? It's
Or it could be really pretentious. You never know.
It could be, yeah. But the fact that they both found it is awesome. So,
yeah.
Anyway, all right. So after begging his parents, Romero received an 8mm camera in 1954 for his 14th birthday. In the book, The Cinema of George Romero, Night of the Living Dead, Tony Williams recounts the result of this gift. Romero was arrested for throwing a burning dummy from a roof while shooting Man from Meteor. After, can you imagine just in the Bronx, tossing a burning dummy off a roof to the street? Bro, people would...
They probably thought it was a real body, honestly.
Right? You got to do some stuff to get some great film. So, we know that. Anyway, so after Romero's arrest, he was sent to Suffield Academy in Connecticut to continue his education. He graduated from Suffield Academy and went on to attend Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. While there, he studied art, design, and drama and graduated in 1960. Man, that makes me want to throw like a burning dummy off the roof and film it. Hey, speaking about movies and making movies, if there's anyone now or in the future who's listening to this podcast, and you consider yourself to be a movie producer, or you are a producer, and you want to go check out Brava on YouTube. We talked about Brava in episode 1. Go back and listen to episode 1, hear all about Brava, check out the promos, and then shoot me a line, and let's make this movie. Just saying, Mikey and I are down.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Always.
Anyway, all right. So, back in the timeline. After graduating from college, Romero began his career shooting short films and TV commercials. One of his early commercial films was a segment for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in which Fred Rogers underwent a tonsillectomy. Interesting. With 9 friends, including screenwriter John A. Russo, Romero founded and... God, son of a bitch! Oh, are you drinking the sodas too?
Oh, crap.
Those aren't free, buddy. Put it on the tab. There's no tab. I'm going to take it out of your check.
So where have these videotapes been going?
Wait, no. You know what? You know what you took? You took the bag of Swedish fish. I saw it.
The 1 pound bag.
Bro, I saw you take the 1 pound bag of Swedish fish and eat the whole thing in the break room. Calm down. Anyway.
I left some for you guys. There's like 3.
With 9 friends, including screenwriter John A. Russo, Romero formed Image 10 Productions in the late 1960s. This is the production company that produced Night of the Living Dead in 1968. Directed by Romero and co-written by John A. Russo, the movie became a cult classic and a defining moment for modern horror cinema. So let's take a little time here to pause and talk about this genre-defining film. Night of the Living Dead was directed, photographed, edited, and written by Romero and John Russo, and produced by Russell Streiner and Carl Hardman. It stars Dwayne Jones and Judith O'Dea. The story follows 7 people who become trapped in a farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania, which is under assault by a group of undead ghouls. This is frequently identified as the first modern zombie film. Having gained experience through directing television commercials and industrial films for their production company, Romero and his friend Russo and Streiner decided to make a feature film. They elected to make a horror film that would capitalize on commercial interest in the genre. The script primarily drew influence from Richard Matheson's 1954 novel, I Am Legend. Principal photography took place between July 1967 and January 1968, mainly on location in Evans City. The cast and crew consisted of the production team's friends and relatives, local stage and amateur actors, and residents from the area. Romero used guerrilla film-making techniques he had honed in his commercial and industrial work to complete the film on a budget of approximately $100,000.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. Well, what's in 1968? What's $100,000 to today? So we can get a feel
like $5.
Shut up. Okay, so that'd be about $867,000. So still under $1 million.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't make movies for less than I feel like it's in the hundreds of millions. I feel like all these superhero movies I've seen are like in the 1s, 2s, 3s.
It must be.
Right? I don't know. But he made some serious money. So they made the film on a budget of approximately $100,000. Night of the Living Dead premiered in Pittsburgh on October 1st of 68. It grossed $12 million domestically and $18 million internationally. So it earned more than 250 times its budget, making it one of the most profitable film productions ever made at that time.
That's amazing.
Released shortly prior to the adoption of the Motion Picture of America rating system, the film's explicit violence and gore was considered groundbreaking, leading to controversy and negative reviews, obviously. It eventually garnered a cult following and critical acclaim, and has appeared on the lists of the greatest and most influential films by such outlets as Empire, The New York Times, and Total Film.
And VHS Doom.
And VHS Doom. That's right. And VHS Doom. Doom. Frequently identified as a touchstone in the development of the horror genre, retrospective scholarly analysis has focused on its reflection of the social and cultural changes in the United States during the 1960s, with particular attention towards the casting of Jones, an African American, in the leading role. In 1999, the film was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress and selected for preservation in the National Film Registry.
That's so amazing.
That is quite the pedigree. That is pretty cool. So, Night of the Living Dead created a successful franchise that includes 5 sequels released between 1978 and 2009, all of which are directed by Romero. The film has also inspired several remakes as a result of its public domain status, which we kind of touched on last week a little bit, at least in mention of the Italian remakes, right?
I wouldn't call them remakes because, like, all right, so Fulci's Zombie 2 or Zombie Flesh Eaters is sold in Italy as the second Dawn of the Dead movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same aesthetics, but different plot, and it gets worse after 2. 3 and 4 are directed by Bruno Mattei, and the writer is the director of Troll 2. So you know what you're kind of getting into with those last 2 ones. There's also Burial Ground 2, which is another Italian one, and that definitely takes, like, the zombies kind of look like Romero's zombies.
Okay. So inspiration, but not quite remakes.
Yeah.
So there is an official remake that was written by Romero, but directed by Tom Savini in 1990. Now, what do you think of that remake?
I really like that movie a lot. I think Tony Todd is really good as Ben. I think the effects are good. I think it was really good, and I think it went well with the original one too. I don't know.
I haven't watched that, so I'll put that on my list. I feel like one of these next episodes, we need to do a homework for Dylan episode,
or even for me too. There's some stuff I've never seen either.
Yeah, we can do that. That would be fun. All right, so why don't you give us a little bit of a synopsis, your thoughts, why it was influential to you, maybe the first time you saw it, whatever you want to talk about.
The Night of the Living Dead, the first time I saw it, I would say I was like 13 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously knew the name of it because of like the Misfits song. I think I was like 14 or 15. I think it was like one of those like giant box sets of like movies you can get like at like $1, so it's like 10 movies in a set.
Yeah. Or those like the bins at Walmart, they're all like between $1 to $5. Yeah.
It was like the top 50 like chilling movies or something. And I watched it. I loved it. I kept watching it over and over again because I thought it was amazing. And even for like black and white, I don't know. At that time, I really wasn't into black and white movies. So I thought it was really cool.
I feel like it's hard for some people. It's kind of a weird thing, right? To get into a black and white film.
I think movies look better in black and white, honestly.
Right? You can see such good contrast. But I personally know a ton of people who say like, oh, I won't watch black and white movies. I just can't. I'm like, oh, interesting.
I don't understand that, or people who don't like subtitles.
Bro, I live by subtitles now.
Me too. I watch such things where the dubbing of movies is like really bad, and like it's literally not what they're saying in the subtitles.
Right. If the subtitles aren't on, I'm like, why can't I hear this? I can't hear the movie. Turn on the subtitles.
It's funny. I've gotten so used to it that I feel like I'm actually watching them talk while reading it.
Yeah, for real. It's a good way to learn a new language too. I've been working on Spanish now for like a couple of years. I used like Duolingo and some other books and stuff. But we were watching SNL. We were watching the Pedro Pascal SNL.
That was a good episode.
Ago. It was good. And he did a skit where he was playing like a Hispanic mother, and so he was talking to,
oh my god, yes, that was funny.
Yeah, talking to his son in Spanish, and because I had the subtitles on, I read along and I understood everything. I was like, yeah, Duolingo. I mean, you may harass me incessantly to do your lessons, but I'm learning something. So that made me happy.
I want to learn Italian. Bro,
you should. You definitely should. It's a lot of fun, actually. Anyway, off topic. So, anything else you want to talk about?
The part where when they go down to the basement and the
Hmm.
little girl was killing her mother. That really creeped me out when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, yep, for sure. That's tough. Yeah, I was just. I feel like. I mean, if you haven't watched it, obviously check it out today.
You
it's
better.
free because it's public domain, so it's like on everything for free.
That really screwed
Um,
him over in the long run too.
yeah, yeah, I know that's tough. Just go check it out. You got to watch it. But
It's
the
a classic.
ending, yeah, if you haven't watched it, I'm not obviously not going to spoil the ending for you. But the ending is such a representation of America at that time, America today, unfortunately, America tomorrow until we fix some things. So, um, yeah, that's a good. It's just go watch it. All right, so we'll jump back in. We'll talk a little bit about what he did after Night of the Living Dead, and then we'll get into like the trilogy. And I know, um, Mikey, you were real big on Dawn of the Dead, right?
Yes, it's my favorite. One of my favorite movies of all time.
Okay, so let me read through this, and then we'll get to that. So, the three films that Romero created that followed Night of the Living Dead were "There's Always Vanilla" in 1971. I've never seen that. Have you seen that one, Mike?
No, but I plan on getting the Arrow Blu-ray for it. Yeah, I've seen some of his earlier stuff, like Martin and the Crazies, but I haven't seen that or Season of the Witch.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I'm just looking up the like let's read the back of the DVD, right? So there's always Vanilla, which was also known as The Affair, is a 1971 romantic comedy directed by Romero and starring Raymond Lane, Judith Ridley, Roger McGovern, and Joanna Lawrence. It was his second motion picture and his only romantic comedy.
I feel like that'd be good. A romantic comedy by him.
Yeah, right. So Romero himself has stated that he considers the film to be his worst, and has
Does he
referred
really?
referred to this film as a total mess. Like many of Romero's earlier films, he cites the reason as undercapitalization. It follows the life of Chris Bradley, who's a former U.S. Army soldier who has become a drifter, makes some money by various means, and then meets a girl and blah blah blah. We won't get too far into it, but he made the movie for only $70,000, and then so the next movie he directed was Jack's Wife or Season of the Witch. It looks like it was originally released as Hungry Wives. So it's a 73 drama film written and directed by Romero. It starred Jan White, Raymond Lane, and Anne Muffley. It follows a housewife in suburban Pittsburgh who becomes involved in witchcraft after meeting a local witch. That actually sounds pretty cool.
It does.
Um,
I
and
heard it's good.
it's a feminist film. He described it as a feminist film himself. So, yeah. So, anyway, that's his next two films. And then The Crazies in 1973 was still not as well received as The Night of the Living Dead or some other later work.
I love this one.
Yeah, The Crazies deals with a biospill that induces an epidemic of homicidal madness. It's a science fiction horror film written and directed by Romero. It stars Lane Carroll, William McMillan, and Harold Wayne Jones as residents of a small American town that become afflicted by a military biological weapon. It was filmed in Evans City in western Pennsylvania. Yeah, so it became a cult film, and then the remake was released in 2010, which he did not direct, but he did work as the executive producer on Romero. So, yeah, definitely watch The Crazies and watch the remake. I like the remake. The original, his budget on that was $275,000. Oh man, the poor guy. His box office was only $143,000. That's rough.
The movie deserves more.
Yeah, I'm sure he made. I'm sure he made it back on royalties over time, though, and especially the remake. So sometimes you just got to make what you write and make what you like, and it might flop, but you might end up with something that becomes a cult classic. Like cult classics become cult classics because they flopped.
It's definitely one of my favorite movies from the 70s. I would say that.
Yeah, right, for sure. And then, okay, so then we have the critically acclaimed art house success of Martin in 1978.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, a film that deals with the vampire myth he got from zombies into vampires. Internationally, Martin was known as Vampyr, or Wampyr.
And it was also part of the Section 3 video nasties list.
Ah, nice. Okay, great. So it was both written and directed by Romero. What crazy. So just between There's Always Vanilla, rom-com, Season of the Witch, and then The Crazies, and then Martin, like, what a range on that, you know?
This
It's
movie
crazy.
is really good.
Yeah. So it stars John Amplas, Lincoln Mazel, Christine Forrest, and Tom Savini.
He did the effects. It's the first time they did the effects together.
So Tom Savini played Arthur as well in the movie. So okay, cool. Yeah, I haven't watched Martin. I gotta put it on my list. Gotta watch
It's
it.
definitely a very different vampire movie.
So while a prosecution for obscenity did not result, the film was seized and confiscated in the UK under Section 3. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that on another episode's video nasties.
Absolutely. We're gonna go through the whole list, man.
Because there's ones that are not prosecuted. There's ones that are prosecuted. Everything from like The Evil Dead, Texas Chainsaw, Cannibal Holocaust.
You know what? I'm just gonna read from the plot here in Martin, the first paragraph. And if you haven't watched Martin and this doesn't give you like the goosebumps and like, oh wow, this sounds intense.
It's creepy.
So a young man, Martin, traveling on an overnight train from Indianapolis to Pittsburgh, sedates a woman with a syringe full of narcotics, slices her forearm with a razor blade, then drinks her blood, allowing her to slowly bleed to death. The next morning, he's met at the Pittsburgh train station by his elderly cousin, who escorts him to a second train destined for Braddock, Pennsylvania. Interesting. Well, I think I'm going to have to use my employee discount and check out Martin today. All right, and then before we let Mikey start talking about Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead, here's Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. Romero returned to the zombie genre in 1978 with Dawn of the Dead. Shot on a budget of $1.5 million, the film earned over $55 million internationally and was later named one of the top cult films by Entertainment Weekly in 2003. He made the third entry in his Dead series with Day of the Dead in 1985. So, Mikey, let's get your thoughts on Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead.
Okay, so I like Day a lot, but Dawn is my favorite one, I think. Okay. Especially Argento's. Dario Argento did a cut of Dawn of the Dead. There's several different versions of the movie itself. Most people prefer the theatrical cut. I think the Dario Argento cut is better. It cuts out some of the comedy in the movie, and they do a different score for the movie from the band Goblin.
So they were friends.
Yeah, they collaborated together, yeah. That was my entryway into Italian horror, honestly.
Was because of the relationship that they had?
Because of Dawn and like finding out about Dario Argento, yeah.
The cast, we have
Ken Foray.
Ken Foray. David Imge? Is that how you say that?
I think so. That's how I pronounced it.
Scott Reinecker and Galen Ross. The cinematography was by Michael Gornick. And then it was edited by Romero. So written, directed, and edited. He did so much of his own movies.
I love that when filmmakers do that.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like that the release was actually Italy, then Japan, and then it released in Dallas a couple days before it released across the rest.
Yeah, when it released in Italy, it was called Zombie. Zombi.
Yeah, in 78. So then in March of 79, it hit Japan, and April 7th of 79, it did Dallas release, and then April 13th of 79, it hit the rest of the United States. So that's pretty cool. Cool. And then what were your thoughts on Day of the Dead?
Day of the Dead, I felt like it was more bleak. You definitely feel a sense of dread because they're stuck in the bunker and the military, like I guess it's like a military base, and the soldiers start getting more hostile towards like the scientists.
Yeah, so it looks like Romero described the film as like a tragedy about how a lack of human communication causes chaos and collapse. Yeah, even in a little like slice of pie society is what it says. So this is definitely more bleak, right? So like getting towards the end of end of the series, at least for this time frame.
The original trilogy, yeah.
Yeah, the original trilogy. So it starred Laurie Cardile. How do you say that?
I
Cardiel?
think Cardiel or Cardili. I don't know. Not
Cardiel.
sure.
So Laurie Cardile, Terry Alexander, Joe Pilato, Geralath Conroy, and Richard Liberty. And then the cinematography on that one was by Michael Gornick as well. And it was written, directed by Romero, but this one was edited by Pascal Buba. I don't know. Yeah, so he was obviously garnering more of a budget from producers because this third installment, his budget was about $4 million, but at box office it still made $34 million. So
And a lot of the makeup effects artists got their start on that movie too.
A lot of effects artists.
Yeah, like Greg Nicotero, Howard Berger. They have a company together. Tom Savini.
It looks like the soundtrack was by John Harrison.
It's really good. I definitely think if you like The Walking Dead, you'll like this. I feel like The Walking Dead came from this.
Okay, so The Walking Dead took its influence.
Definitely, for sure. I mean, the showrunner for a while was Greg Nicotero, and he was one of the effects artists for Day of the Dead.
There you go. There you go. So let's move on. We're going to hear some of his other films in the 80s, and then we'll move on to the 90s and 2000s. So between these two films, Romero shot Night Riders in 1981, which was a festival favorite about a group of modern-day jousters who reenact tournaments on motorcycles. We were talking about that one a little bit before we started the show. You like that movie, don't you, Mike?
Yeah, I think it's really fun.
It stars Tom Savini and Ed Harris. Harris. Okay, all right.
And it was also filmed in Pittsburgh also.
Yeah, you know what? He filmed most of his stuff in Pennsylvania.
And he had most of the same crew for most of those movies, too.
Anyway, so he also did Creepshow in 1982, which was written by Stephen King, an anthology of tongue-in-cheek tales modeled after 1950s horror comics. The cult classic success of Creepshow led to the creation of Romero's Tales from the Dark Side.
Oh, I love that show so much.
And then as the decade drew to a close, Romero directed Monkey Shines in 88 about a service animal. Have you watched Monkey Shines?
Yeah, I have the old DVD for it.
Nice.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, so it's a psychological horror film, and it's based on the 83 British novel of the same name by Michael Stewart. That one starred Jason Beggy, John Pankow, Kate McNeil, and Joyce Van Patten. Now, this one was not a box office success because he spent $7 million on this movie, and it only made $5.3 million, so he lost a little bit on that. All right. And then as we move into the 90s and the 2000s, let's see where we're going. So Romero updated his original screenplay and executive produced the 1990 remake Night of the Living Dead, directed by Tom Savini, which we talked about earlier. That was for Columbia and TriStar Pictures. Savini is also responsible for the makeup and special effects in many of Romero's films, including Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Creepshow, and Monkey Shines. Tom Savini and his school, we watched a documentary, Mikey and I, on Tom Savini's school.
I wanted to go there for a while.
Yeah, it is just the coolest freaking thing, man. And his house?
It's so amazing.
It is wild.
All of his masks and stuff.
Right? Do you know what that doc is called?
Okay, I think the one we saw was Smoke and Mirrors, the story of Tom Savini.
Yeah, okay. That's the doc,
That's
right?
the one?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
From like 2015, yeah.
Yeah, and then what's his school called?
So it's out of the Douglas Education Center.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Tom Savini Special Makeup Effects Program. One of my favorite indie like extreme directors, Fred Vogel, who did August Underground. He came up through there.
Yeah, it's a really cool doc. Check it out, and shoot, if you're interested in special effects and going to school for it, check out the school. All right, so the early 90s also featured directorial efforts Two Evil Eyes, which was an Edgar Allan Poe adaptation in collaboration with Dario Argento. and The Dark Half in 1993 from a novel written by Stephen King. In 1991, he made a cameo appearance in Jonathan Demme's Academy Award-winning The Silence of the Lambs as one of Hannibal Lecter's jailers. Mikey, you wanted to talk a little bit about Two Evil Eyes, right?
So that one came out in 1990. It was an anthology horror film with Argento and Romero, and they both picked stories from Edgar Allan Poe. Romero directed the facts in the case of M. Vladimir, and Argento did The Black Cat. I really enjoyed The Black Cat. Harvey Keitel really played like an evil piece of crap, I guess, since I don't want to really curse on here.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. So the plot of the other one, the facts in the case of Mr. Valdemar. Adrienne Barbeau plays the wife of her elderly husband, and he dies, and then the police show up, and like some weird stuff started happening. And yeah, as I was talking about The Black Cat, it's Harvey Keitel, and he plays a photographer who's really pissed off and like really like a disturbed person, and all of a sudden his cat disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out that he was like slowly like murdering it. They add a little bit of a telltale heart to it.
Okay, yeah, a little bit of
but that was The Black Cat by Romero was my favorite one out of the two movies.
Yeah, it looks the cover or the poster at least, which was the theatrical release poster by Enzo.
Is that the one with like the eyes and it looks like a drinking glass?
No, it's actually it's a picture of the guy standing, just staring at you with like a blue background.
The one that's on the Blue Underground edition of it, I think.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
It's the Italian poster, Duoci Diablica or
Diablici.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, that one's pretty good. That's a good poster. I'm a big fan of like cover art and movie posters. So
yeah, you've seen me go to like when we go to the conventions, just like buy a lot of them.
Yeah, right. I mean, maybe that's how they get you on buying different.
Yeah, honestly, you go there, you see so many like awesome bootlegs that are never released, and like someone's like reprinting like pictures that they got on the computer as posters.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, but that looks cool.
And then you take that and you have the person sign it.
Right, exactly. There you go, and then it's worth something. Exactly. Yeah. Oh my god. Anyway, all right, cool. So let's move on. In 1994, Romero shot a short film, which I have never seen. Maybe you have, called Jacaranda Joe?
No, I when I was looking up I was looking at the show notes this morning, and like we were going over it. I'd never heard of it before.
It's only 17 minutes long. It was initially conceived in the 70s as The Footage, which was the title. It was about a reality television show in which a famous athlete learns to hunt and accidentally discovers a community of Bigfoot.
I need to see this. That sounds awesome.
Right? It was filmed in Valencia College in Florida over 10 days. The cast and crew, it was all students, faculty, and then local professionals. It's the first film that Romero shot entirely outside of Pittsburgh, so that's notable. So check that out. Short film, 17 minutes long. Won't last long, and it'll rewind quick, you delinquents. Okay.
Stop chewing on boxes.
Stop chewing on the boxes. Man, it's the worst. All right, so in 1998, Romero directed a live-action commercial promoting the video game Resident Evil 2 in Los Angeles. The 30-second advertisement featured the game's two main characters, and they were fighting a horde of zombies while in Raccoon City's police station. The project was obvious territory for Romero. The Resident Evil series has been heavily influenced by the Dead series. The commercial was popular and was shown in the weeks before the game's actual release, although a contract dispute prevented it from being shown outside of Japan. So I guess unless you've watched it on YouTube, you probably didn't see it. Capcom was so impressed with Romero's work, and it was strongly indicated that he would be directing their first Resident Evil film.
Couldn't you imagine how much better the movie would have been if he directed it?
I know, man. Well, so he declined at first, stating, like, making the statement, I don't want to make another film with zombies in it.
That's so not true. He made like 4 of them afterwards, too.
I know. I mean, I guess you fall back into what you love, right? But
I think he was pigeonholed, sadly, though.
well, yeah, so he continued to say, well, the full statement was, I don't want to make another film with zombies in it, and I couldn't make a movie based on something that ain't mine. Although in later years, he reconsidered and wrote a script for the first movie, but it was eventually rejected in favor of Paul W.S. Anderson's version, which was...
I'm really not a fan of that director.
No, they made a mistake in that. They should have picked his... They should have just gone with the legend, right? But
yeah.
Anyway, and then in 2000, that saw the release of Bruiser, about a man whose face becomes a blank mask. Now, I've never seen Bruiser.
I've always wanted to see it. I've never seen it, though.
Okay. It's technically a French movie, but it's a horror thriller, which was written and directed by Romero. It starred Jason Fleming, Peter Stormare, and Leslie Hope. It was filmed in Toronto. So, in 2004, Romero kicked off the DC Comics title Toe Tags with a 6-issue miniseries titled The Death of Death. Based on an unused script that Romero had written for his Dead series, the comic miniseries concerns Damien, an intelligent zombie who remembers his former life, struggling to find his identity as he battles armies of both the living and the dead. Typical of a Romero zombie tale, the miniseries includes ample supply of both gore and social commentary, dealing partly here with corporate greed and terrorism, ideas he would also explore in his next film series, The Land of the Dead. Romero has stated that the miniseries is set in the same kind of world as his Dead films, but features other locales besides Pittsburgh, where the majority of his films take place. Okay, so have you read the Toe Tags?
No, I haven't. But it sounds like something I would enjoy, though.
Yeah, put it on the list, man. Maybe we can start selling comics out of the store, too. I don't know. All right, so Romero, who lived in Toronto, directed a 4th Dead movie in that city, Land of the Dead, released in 2005. The movie's working title was Dead Reckoning. Actors Simon Baker, Dennis Hopper, Asia Argento, and John Leguizamo... John Leguizamo starred, and the film was released by Universal Pictures, who released the Dawn of the Dead remake the year before. The film received generally positive reviews. Well, let's get a review from one Mike Balbert. What's your take on Land of the Dead?
I thought it was really good. I like that one. It was really good for like a newer take on it, I feel like.
Oh, you know what? My internet's acting funky. Hold up. Yeah, hold up. All right, so after a limited theatrical release, Diary of the Dead was released on DVD by Dimension Extreme on May 20th, 2008, and later to Blu-ray on October 21st. Shooting began in Toronto in September 2008 on Romero's Survival of the Dead, which came out in 2009. The film was initially reported to be a direct sequel to Diary of the Dead, but the film features only Alan Van Sprang, who appeared briefly as a rogue National Guard officer, reprising his role from the previous film, and did not retain the first-person camera work of Diary of the Dead. What are your thoughts on either of these movies?
Survival, I didn't like it all. The Diary had some parts where it would have been cool. Like, if they stuck to the found footage part of it, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Found footage zombie movie sounds awesome.
It does, right? All right, so the film centers on 2 feuding families taking very different approaches in dealing with the living dead on a small coastal island. The film premiered at the 2009 Toronto International Film Festival. Prior to the May 28th, 2010 theatrical release in the United States, Survival of the Dead was made available on video on demand and was aired as a one-night special showing on May 26th, 2010 on hdnet.com. Some critics have seen social commentary in much of Romero's work. They view Night of the Living Dead as a film made in reaction to the turbulent 1960s, Dawn of the Dead as a satire on consumerism, Day of the Dead as a study of the conflict between science and the military, Land of the Dead as an examination of class conflict, Diary of the Dead as a film made in reaction to the emerging media, and Survival of the Dead as a study on war and conflict. And I highly agree with all of those statements.
I love his social message in those movies. I touched on it before with Dawn, with the whole like Black Friday thing now. Just like think about it. You're looking at zombies peering into a store and
yeah, I think that if Romero had lived through COVID, he would have been unbelievably inspired. Yeah.
He would have made a second Crazies movie.
Right. Anyway. Okay, so let's keep going. In 2014, Marvel Comics began releasing Empire of the Dead, which was a 15-issue miniseries written by Romero. The series is broken up into 3 acts, 5 issues each, and featuring not only zombies, but also vampires. In May of 2015, it was announced at Cannes that the production company Demarest was developing the comic series into a TV series. The series was to be written and executive produced by Romero and Peter Grunwald. In May of 2017, Romero announced plans for 2 upcoming zombie films. The first one was George A. Romero Presents Road of the Dead, a film that he co-wrote with Matt Bierman, who would direct the film, making it Romero's second zombie-themed film that he did not direct himself. Berman was the second unit director on Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead. Bierman pitched the idea to Romero 10 years earlier, saying that the movie was like The Road Warrior meets Rollerball at a NASCAR race. Jesus Christ.
That sounds awesome.
It does. With significant inspiration from Ben-Hur. The story is set on an island. Right, I know. And that the story is set on an island where zombie prisoners race cars in a modern day Coliseum for the entertainment of wealthy humans.
Wait, that kind of sounds like Death Race.
Kind of, a little bit. All right. So on July 13th, 2017, Romero released the first poster for Road of the Dead and discussed the plot for the movie, saying it's set in a sanctuary city where this fat cat runs a haven for rich folks, and one of the things that he does is stage drag races to entertain them. Romero told Rue Morgue, there is a scientist there doing genetic experiments trying to make the zombies stop eating us, and he has discovered that with a little tampering, they can recall certain memory skills that enable them to drive in those races. It's really the Fast and the Furious with zombies. Oh my God.
You know what it seems like to me?
Huh.
So in Dawn, it starts with that character Bub, the zombie, where it's like he's like self-aware and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like he's wanted to make a whole movie with just those kind of zombies.
Yeah. Okay. So unfortunately, we've come to the end of our story here with George A. Romero, at least for his living days, because he died 3 days after this interview that he was giving. So obviously that led to reports questioning if the film would ever be made. In 2020, Bierman announced that he would finish the film as a tribute to Romero and named it Wolf Island. A prequel comic book series based on Romero's Road of the Dead was announced by IDW in July of 2018. The 3-part miniseries was released in December of that year. The second zombie film he announced was titled Twilight of the Dead. He penned a film treatment with co-writer Paolo Zalotti, depicting a conclusion to the series that explains the fate of the zombie protagonist from Land of the Dead, and an ending where humanity has become virtually extinct. Romero had written the beginning of the script, but the project was stalled when he died of lung cancer. It was announced in April of 2021 that the film had been put back into development under the supervision of Suzanne Romero, with Zalotti finishing the script with screenwriters Joe Netter and Robert L. Lucas. Suzanne told The Hollywood Reporter this is the film he wanted to make, and while someone else will carry the torch as director, it is very much a George A. Romero film. On July 16th of 2017, as we said before, Romero died following a brief but aggressive battle with lung cancer. According to a statement by his longtime producing partner, Peter Grunwald, Romero died while listening to the score of one of his favorite films, The Quiet Man, with his wife Suzanne and his daughter Tina at his side. During his lifetime, Romero directed 18 movies, 16 full and 2 shorts. He wrote 19. He was the executive producer of 4, editor of 9, and cinematographer of 3. In TV series, he directed 3, he wrote 1, and he produced and edited 3. That is an amazing, amazing resume. As far as his legacy, Romero was regarded as the godfather of the dead and the father of the modern zombie movie. Critic Owen Gleiberman said that of Romero and that he was a maestro of zombie terror who created the ultimate horror movie metaphor. And he remarked that the real metaphor isn't only about Vietnam or capitalism or even disease or anything else that you can stuff into a fortune cookie. It's about something more basic but ethereal, something that you can sense without putting it into words, the hidden aggression we all feel deep down, as the price of too much civilization. In May of 2019, the University of Pittsburgh announced it had acquired George Romero's archives and that it had built a multimedia exhibit to be created and open to the public in the university's Hillman Library. Cool. We should go check that out, bro. That'd be awesome.
We should.
Yeah.
Especially since you're on the East Coast now.
Yeah, for sure. And then lastly, the George A. Romero Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving and promoting Romero's legacy. Founded in 2018 by his wife Suzanne, the foundation's mission is to advance the causes for which Romero was a champion, creativity within the horror genre and independent filmmaking in general, as well as preserving and documenting the history of the genre in all forms and contributing to its future by encouraging new generations of filmmakers, artists, and creators. And that, my friends, is the end of the biography from VHS Doom for George A. Romero. So, before we take off, let's talk about our let's talk about our recommendations. What film should our customers be checking out this week, Mikey?
I would go with the original Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, of course.
If you haven't seen it. If it's a rewatch, have some fun. It's going to be awesome.
Yep, absolutely. I think The Crazies. I'm going to put the 1973 film The Crazies on the list. Y'all should definitely check that out today. All right, so in your pile, we got Night of the Living Dead. We have The Crazies. And what's one more, Mike?
I'll go with Martin. I feel like that one needs more love. It just got put out on Blu-ray by Second Sight.
Okay, awesome. Cool. And then I feel like, keeping with the theme, we definitely need to recommend some sort of like kids movie, right? Because we both have kids.
I have one.
What are we going to recommend this week?
The original Land Before Time movie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was so good. So the Land Before Time original came out on November 18th, 1988. Littlefoot, a young plant-eating dinosaur, is orphaned after his mother perishes while protecting him from a vicious carnivore. Oh, yes, so intense. Definitely go and check out the original Land Before Time for the kids. Well, VHS Doom crew, we lost Mikey right here at the end of the show due to technical difficulties, but I do want to say thank you all so much for tuning back into us this week. So get your popcorn, get your candy, friends, and let's get you out the door. Remember, be kind and rewind. All right, friends, once again, if you have not, go give us a follow on our Twitter, our Facebook, our Instagram at VHS Doom Pod. If you want anything read on air, send it over there, or you can send it to vhsdoom@gmail.com, and we will read what you want to say on the air. Tell us if we suck. Tell us if we're good. Tell us what you want to hear about in future episodes. Go check Mikey out on the Dab of Death podcast with his co-host Jimmy, and go check out the Doombox podcast to give me a listen if you want to hear more about the history of music or movies or pop culture. Thanks so much, friends. Thanks for being a part of the crew, and I hope y'all have a wonderful week.
Peace.